Alright, in this video I'll be making this 3-step version of the pet stairs. If you want the 2-step version, just check out my other video. Here are the supplies you'll need. If the slides go by too fast, please pause so that you can read them to see what you need for whichever version you decide to make. I got the boxes, the Easy Liner shelf liner, and the rug gripper tape at Walmart. I got the contact paper off of Amazon for another project because it was a larger roll, but you can get contact paper at Walmart. I had all the other tools on hand because I like to DIY and make things. Let's get into it. For this demonstration, I will be using one of the smaller boxes. The measurements of the box are printed on the bottom. I'm a visual person, so I like to still use my ruler so that I can visualize how this is going to go together. The next thing I needed to do was to just decide how many inserts I was going to need and how far apart they needed to go. For myself, I like to make cheat sheets. Now, if you do the 2-step version, then this would be fine. But if you do the 3-step version, you would need to double what you have for the small inserts. I'll be showing how I mark the cut lines on one of the smaller inserts. The first thing that I do is measure half the height of the insert so that I don't cut too far. This is one of my quilting rulers, and I love these things. If you don't have one, you don't need one, but it just works for me, and I had it on hand. So the first thing I do is measure 2-inch increments first. It's very important that you do the 2-inch increments first, or whatever increment you do decide. And you'll see why here in a minute. All right. There's the last one. You'll see that I move the ruler about 1/8 of an inch. I know it gets really fuzzy when I zoom in, and I'm sorry. I marked an 1/8 gap to allow room for the cardboard. Now, it's very important that you always measure the gap in the same direction so that all the pieces will align when you go to put everything together. There's the final one. I used a box cutter to cut on the lines. Sometimes I also had to use an X-Acto knife to get in those really small inner corners. Now they're cut, and as you can see, some of the gaps are a little bit different, but it doesn't have to be perfect. Here are the measurements and the amount of inserts that I used. You can pause to see the captions if you decide to use the same boxes as I did. As you can see, here's the 1-inch version that I decided to use for the large box since it was going to have to take the most weight. The other two were just 2-inch versions. That one insert was a little weird. Just set these off to the side and I'll focus on the construction of one of the small boxes. So you'll see as I'm moving them around, you can see the cut lines, the halfway point. So I placed the first 2 pieces together, and it does get a little tough, but it takes, once you start messing with it, you can kind of feel what you can and can't do. You just got to take your time and be patient with it. You'll notice I flipped the second piece because remember when I said you want to measure the gaps in the same direction? That way it aligns. I made sure the side that I drew the half height mark on was facing in the same direction on all pieces, so I knew that everything would be aligned. As you'll see, I was looking for the mark, the halfway point, and you can see it right there on the edge. So I make sure that they're all going to face the same direction. It's important that they're all aligned and the gaps all fit the same way because if not, you could lessen the integrity of the inside grid, and it also may misshape the outside of the box. So you can see I'm kind of struggling with the last one here. And you don't want to put too much weight on it, because as you can see with that middle insert, I kind of crushed the top of it. And if you do it to one, it's fine, but you don't want to do it to all of them. I realized that I could pull up on the bottom of the shorter inserts to make everything align. That would have saved me so much time and effort. But you live and you learn, I guess. You're just going to go ahead and you're going to repeat this process for however many steps that you have. Now that those are complete, we'll set them off to the side. And we're going to take the smaller box and we're going to put it together. I had some packing tape that I had found in one of my craft drawers, and as you can see, I forgot to put something on the edge, so I was struggling a little bit to get it started. Usually what I try to do is put like a paper clip so that I can easily peel it off, and then you don't have to use two hands to stop it from, you know, splintering. But we got it. You can use whatever kind of tape you have on hand, because you can cover it later. But a trick that I use when I'm trying to put boxes together by myself is I will take a smaller piece and I'll just put it across both the flaps to kind of hold them in place once I get everything aligned the way I want it. All right. And then I go lengthwise with the longer piece. Right here, I grabbed the insert that I made, and one of the smaller inserts fell out because I had made the gaps too big. This is not a big deal, because once you put it inside the box and you seal the box, it'll stay together and it won't mess with the integrity. So if one of these falls out on you because you made the gaps too big, it's not a huge deal. It'll still work. So you just put the grid inside the box and seal it up like you did the bottom. I should have had a piece ready, but I didn't. Obviously, I was struggling a little bit. It was pretty late when I was finishing this up. As you can see, the lighting has changed. All right, get those two lined up. All right, and then one more lengthwise. And again, just to save a little bit of time in the video, you're just going to go ahead and repeat the process for as many steps as you had. All right, so now all three of the steps are complete. This is where you stack the small box on top. If you're doing the two-step version, then that's all you have to do. If you're doing the three-step version, then you'll just add that extra step on the bottom like I did there. I personally like to use hot glue because, I mean, you can get it at Dollar Tree, you can get it wherever. I buy the value packs at Joann's when I have coupons. And as you'll see, I have a white glue gun here that's already preheated, but that wasn't enough. So I also had one of my larger ones preheating as well. So then I just flip it over. I make sure the edges are aligned, and I press it into place for a few seconds just so it creates that bond. Because obviously the flaps are a little bit bowed, so you want to put some pressure on there. Then I personally like to fill all the gaps around the edges of the bottom of the top step connecting to the large box with hot glue. I fill those gaps in with the hot glue because I believe it makes a stronger bond. Plus, it also stops the step from rocking when it gets used. So it makes it last a little bit longer as well. I did most of the gap filling off camera because it takes a lot of hot glue and it takes a lot of time because you have to wait for the hot glue gun to preheat the glue and then you got to fill it in. But I believe it's worth it. As long as it makes my pet safe and it makes it work better for them, I'm all for it. Once I fill all the gaps, I also put tape over the top of it just for extra security. I prefer duct tape for this step, but I didn't have any. But any wide tape will work. As you can see, I've already filled the gaps and everything's taped in place. Now, I use the contact paper to wrap around the outside for aesthetics. You can use any kind of contact paper you want, whatever fits your home decor. I just used black because a lot of my accent tables and my TV stands are all black. I did it off camera because I kept messing up. It kept getting stuck to the carpet because I tried to rush it. The thing to note here is to just be patient and go section by section. I also wish I would have covered the top of the steps because it would have looked a lot better when it was completed, but it is what it is. Now, I already cut the rug gripper tape to the width of the steps to make it easier for the video. I peeled one side off and stuck it down to the top of the step. I also did this on the face of the steps as well to hold the shelf liner in place. And I did it as one piece, but you can also cut it into sections, whatever works for you. In the next step, I peeled the protective sheets off the tops, which I found out later I shouldn't have done. It was tricky and it took me a minute. Now I just try to lay the shelf liner on top, and I sped this part of the video up because again, I was struggling. It's pretty straightforward, but I would recommend not pulling all the protective film off the top of the rug gripper tape until you get to that section. I had to go back a few times and unstick the shelf liner because it was not placed right. You'll see that there's a bubble on the face of that top step. Kept getting stuck, and then it didn't want to stick to the tape. Yeah, I made it a lot more difficult than I had to. I used my little Cricut tool to unstick it and try to get it to sit flat. Plus, the shelf liner sticks to itself, so it's hard to maneuver when it's such a long piece like that. Yep. It was crooked again. I felt like some of the rug gripper tape kind of lost its stickiness, but we made it work. Now that it's complete, as you can see the top of the box. I wanted to cover that with the tape. You can see me walking up the steps. It looks shaky, but you have to remember that it's meant to be up against a couch or a bed, and the steps were narrow. I hope this video was helpful and better than the last one. Let me know if you guys have any questions. If you make a set of these steps, please post in the comments so I can see what you guys are doing. Thanks, and I hope you enjoyed.